This podcast was written and created by Avi Melamed, Middle East intelligence analyst and founder of the Inside the Middle East Institute.
Avi Melamed is exploring with us the current U.S.-Israel-Iran war that started on Saturday morning, February 28, 2026. Let's dive in. Imagine sitting on an absolute ocean of oil and gas.
Right, the very lifeblood of your country's economy.
Exactly. But your neighborhood is deliberately kept in poverty by your own government. Today, we're looking at Avi Melamed's analysis of a province called Khuzestan, or historically, Ahwaz, and why it's become a massive pressure point in this ongoing conflict.
It really is a crucial area to examine right now. And to grasp what's happening in Khuzestan today, well, you have to look at the historical friction.
So where do we start with that?
This southwestern corner of Iran, right along the Gulf, was actually governed by local Arab leadership until 1925.
Right, and that's when Iranian forces formally took over.
Yes, and since then, Tehran has aggressively pushed assimilation. Forcing administrative changes, shifting demographics.
Sort of trying to erase the local culture entirely. It's almost like a grafted limb that the body occasionally rejects.
That is a very apt analogy.
Because they essentially moved in, took over, and tried to force the original population to completely change their identities. But according to Avi Melamed's research, that forced integration just hasn't worked.
No, it really hasn't.
Which is interesting because most of the people there are Arab Shiite Muslims. You'd think sharing the Shiite faith with Iran's leadership would create some natural loyalty.
You would think so, yeah. But Melamed points out a fascinating dynamic here. Ethnic identity completely overrides religious alignment in this case.
Oh, wow. So the Arab identity is the defining feature.
Exactly. They might share a religion with Tehran, but they don't share a cultural allegiance. And that disconnect has led to a century of deep-rooted grievances.
Right. Because at the end of the day, having the same religion doesn't mean much if you feel culturally erased. Which brings us to this massive paradox about the region's economy.
The economic disparity is staggering. If you look at a map of Iran's energy grid, Khuzestan holds huge oil and gas reserves.
Not to mention critical water supplies and major infrastructure, like the Abadan refineries. The place should be paved in gold.
It absolutely should. Yet, Avi Melamed highlights that it is intentionally economically marginalized.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second because I have to push back here. Why on earth would Tehran politically and economically starve its own energy heartland? That just seems incredibly reckless.
On the surface, it absolutely sounds reckless. But when you look at the mechanics of how Tehran maintains power, well, it makes a dark kind of sense.
How so?
By keeping the local population economically dependent and out of key administrative roles, Tehran effectively starves them of the resources they need to mount a real political challenge.
So it's a deliberate mechanism of control.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But the unintended consequence is that this marginalization just fuels local anger, transforms Khuzestan into Iran's biggest strategic asset, but simultaneously it's their most glaring internal vulnerability.
And the irony here is pretty glaring too. Avi Melamed notes how Tehran essentially runs a massive PR campaign across the Middle East, right?
Yes, using Shiite solidarity to project influence in places like Lebanon or Iraq.
But the second that same Arab Shiite identity asserts itself independently within their own borders, they panic.
It completely undermines their regional narrative. Tehran wants to use religion as a unifying geopolitical tool. But Ahwaz proves that Arab Shiite identity doesn't automatically buy loyalty to the Iranian state.
And that underlying structural tension has only magnified since this war broke out. Avi Melamed is reporting some intense military measures in Khuzestan right now.
Very intense. We're seeing reinforced Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps deployments and air defense systems positioned directly around the oil fields.
Plus a massive expansion of checkpoints in Arab-populated areas. Wait, I need to stop you there. If Iran is in the middle of a war, they need that oil flowing more than ever.
They absolutely do.
So why risk sparking a local uprising by cracking down so hard right now?
Because they are terrified of a dual-front challenge. On one side, they face the external military threat.
Right, the heavy pressure targeting a vital energy hub.
Exactly. But on the other side, they are bracing for the internal threat. Tehran knows that decades of poverty and marginalization have created a powder keg.
Oh, I see. So they aren't just guarding the oil infrastructure from external airstrikes. They are guarding it from potential sabotage by the very people who live there.
Yes. They're forced to spend half their time guarding the vault from the outside and the other half guarding it from the people inside.
It really puts Avi Melamed's conclusion into perspective. Khuzestan sits squarely at the intersection of energy, identity, and security. It is the engine of Iran, but clearly also its Achilles heel.
Precisely. That dual nature is why it is such a critical pressure point in this entire strategic equation.
It leaves you with something huge to consider. We're looking at a region where a 1925 conquest forced a border over a distinct population. And a century later, it's still a volatile geopolitical fault line.
A conflict of identity that never really faded.
Exactly. So think about this. If borders in the Middle East were hypothetically redrawn today based on local ethnic identity rather than 20th century state conquest, how drastically would the strategic balance of power shift overnight?
This podcast is made possible by supporters like you. ITME is an independent nonprofit institute committed to apolitical, intelligence-based Middle East education.
To learn more or to support our work, visit our website www.insidethemiddle-east.com.